So we're in Advance Steel and we're taking a look at Greytech stairs and railings, particularly focusing upon railings. And in this video, we're going to look at creating a standard railing following a sloping line. So go to your PowerPack tab and go to the Stairs and Railings vault. This will open the Stairs and Railings palette. Under here, select Railings and then select Standard. In this case, I'm going to use the feature of the Greytech railing macro, that is to work with a line. So I'm going to select a line. I'm going to select this baseline here. Now we get to follow a series of prompts. In this case, I could select an object for the railing to be connected to. I'm not going to do so in this case, so I'm going to right click or enter on my mouse. Do you wish to provide base points? So I could provide a series of base points across here at these vertical lines to indicate my post positions. I'm not going to do that in this instance as I want to show the dimensions set within the dialog. Do you want to select a nosing point? You don't have to select this, but sometimes it is warranted to do this if you have a particular arrangement where the actual height of the rail is being governed by say a stair nose rather than the top of a stringer element. So I'm going to select yes, but I'm going to select the same endpoint just for the presentation today. So with that, the railing will now be generated within the model, and this may take a few moments for it to appear. We can now see that the railing has appeared within the model and the dialog box has appeared also. So again, working through a similar process as we've done before in previous videos. We come down in here, come to the post and the properties, and we select the particular post type that we require. So in this case, we're going to select a UK hollow section, and we're going to scroll down until we can get to a suitable size. And we're going to select that. The post will change. Next, we're going to swap to the positioning. And as before, we've got some indications here with some basic setting out. And the first thing I'm going to change here is I'm going to check that it says projected horizontal under the distance definition. I'm going to leave it by segments at the moment because we only have one segment, but if you had multiple segments you could change that. Similarly now, we have a tree structure here and we only have one segment, but I'm going to stay in the top branch of this, but I'm going to change the start and end values in the corresponding dialog fields. And we can now see that the railing is starting to change and the post positions are being aligned to the setting out that we were looking at. So now we change to the handrails tab, and under the sub tab top handrail, again we would come in and we would set this particular feature. So again, we're looking in here as to what we require. So scroll up and down using the scroll bar on the right hand side. In this case I want a flat bar, so I'm going to change to flat, and I'm going to change it to a suitable size that I would require. Similarly, once that's done, we can change to the middle rails. I will need two, one as a bottom rail and one as a shadow rail. So I'm going to change those and we can see those appear within the dialog. Again, I'm going to go to the Properties tab. I'm going to select handrail within the tree structure here, and I'm going to come in again and select the profiles that I require. So in this case, I want a handrail flat. So again, I'm going to come in and change this to a suitable size that I would like. Again, if you did want something different, you can actually come in and change this in here if you so wished. So if you wanted a smaller size, you can change that for the lower rail. Still maintaining in the middle rail position, I'm now going to change to the positioning side tab here. And let's just focus upon this for a minute. So I'm going to try and achieve this setting out where the rails are parallel to the slope line. So the first thing to make sure is it's actually set up correctly. So I want to change this to from bottom aligned. And this actually changes how the macro sees the measurements. Similarly, I want the outer edge set. So that again, this would work from the outer edge. And the first thing we can see now is obviously distance on slope are active, distance on straight are grey because we don't have any straight elements. 1 is actually going to be the lower rail, so that'll be the bottom rail. So I'm going to change that to 100 millimeters, and we can see that the rails move down together and align with the check dimensions we put in to indicate this. Similarly, I now change the measurement in between. Now this may be a particularly strange measurement as it's a perpendicular measurement between the two rails using the intermediate distance. So unfortunately you will have to do a little bit of maths to work that out. Now the other thing we can notice here is obviously the top rail is still too high. So we could pop back to the top rail. And again, we would need to look at defining its height. Now we see rail on straight is set to 1100. Rail on slope is actually set to same as straight. If you change this drop down here, the field will become active next to it. If you now change this to 900 or a suitable figure for your region, it will adjust it down. But again, just a little point to note, you can see that this is actually aligned to the middle of the rail, basically the system line position. This is because this drop down is set to system. If you change it to outer, it will move the top rail down to align to the correct position. So say we wish to put some infill bars into this rail. We would change to the infill panel, and under sub-panel type, we would set the drop down here to pickets in this example. Again, it would generate some pickets. We would then change to the properties tab. The first thing that I would look at doing is changing to a suitable section or profile that I need. So in this case, I'm going to scroll down until I find a round section. Just give it a chance to load and then change this to 10 millimeters. Obviously, presently we only have one zone, that's here, so we're not going to need to worry about that little subtree there. But what I would do is just check that this says identical spacings. And the other thing that I wanted to check in here is now if I change this to 100 millimeters, you will see that the spacings will close down between the rails. The other thing to check is how the distribution is done. Currently, this is done to aligned. So this means that the 100 millimeters is actually running up the incline face. If I zoom in slightly here, and if I change this to straight, you will now see that the picket arrangement will change within the panel. This now means that the measurements are actually being measured horizontally across here, not up the incline line of the slope. Again, if you want pickets in the end of the panel, you need to check these two boxes at each corresponding end to enable them. And obviously entering offsets in the fields provided moves the first rail back and recalculates the corresponding remaining pickets. Now we can move on to a post connection. We're going to select a flat plate type, and with that enabled, we will then change to connection definition. So as we can see, there's something in place here. So again, we can look at this and we can start changing, for example, the length of the plate. Obviously, the width of the plate. And again, if you notice just here quickly to remind you, there's only one segment to look at, so we don't need to worry about multiple segments. The other thing, I'm just going to go and change the thickness here. And that's going to change this element in here. Again, I could put a chamfer detail on if I wanted on the corner by changing the type. So I'm actually going to make it a radius type with the drop down, and then I'm going to enter a figure in here that's going to affect that. I'm just going to pop over to the side tab about connectors. I'm just going to change the diameter of the bolt in here so we can see the bolt changes. And as a reminder to everyone, obviously within the dialog we can change to anchors if we so wish. The next thing is to talk about the positioning of the bolt. So here we can change the distance across the base plate. So here we're going to change this to 60, and that's going to give us a 30mm edge distance on the fixing. And similarly here we're going to change this to 140mm. So one of the things to note here is that you can actually move the holes within the plate by adjusting these offsets in here. But if we just pop back to the plate tab, we can actually also change them here. And this will actually move the plate and the bolt together. So I'm going to put a small offset in here just to move the plate up the pitch line of the railing. Obviously, if you think it's too much, you can just drop it back slightly. And again, adjust it and it will adjust back. So with that in place, you can now see that we have created a basic slope rail with a few changes in the variables available within the dialog. And also placed a base plate on the bottom of it and evenly spaced pickets. And also maintained the standard regulation gap distances that are required between the various elements. Thank you for watching this small presentation about the Graytec railing macro.
Graytec.